Hello guys, welcome to another episode, the second one of Legacy Code Hero. So we're gonna start by doing a little recap here. Last time we were looking at the joystick driver module and we noticed this data structure which defines the module data. All drivers for the xserver needs this data because it defines specifically what procedures do you need to set up the driver, which you could call this the constructor if you like OOP, and this one the destructor. So these ones get rid of whatever data that you allocated on the heap, and this essentially it's another data structure that says important information about the module name and other macros that you may have to define. That there's some here. Last time I said that these are defined by the system, but that's not entirely true. Some of them you have to define yourself, but it's not such a big deal. It's not so important, so we're not gonna look into that today. So we're going to continue revisiting where we were last time, and we saw that to start, the first thing that the xserver will call is this procedure. And here all that we need to do is call add input driver, and we pass in the data structure that I showed you earlier, which has the pointers to those, the setup and the structure essentially. I wanted you to look again at the xserver code here, that this special function where we add the input driver. And last time I didn't show you this, but this is a macro. Essentially, it will always reallocate whenever you add a new driver. It will always add space in memory for that new driver. So on every call is going to call realloc, and it's also going to allocate memory to store a copy of the driver, which is this line right here. We are storing a copy of the driver, and the server is keeping it so that if you plug in the device again, it will use the store module. It won't have to load everything again. And this makes sense. This is the right way of doing things, and it links to the module pointer that we saw earlier, essentially. So one point that I want to mention you, I've been struggling not with this particularly, but the thing is that I'm writing a driver and I don't want the server to keep a storage of these driver in memory, because I want it to load the new code that I just wrote. I don't want to restart the computer or anything like that. I want hot loading. So I had to look a lot into the code and find a way to do this, because yes, there's here a delete input driver, but guess what? You need a driver index. It's not going to give us a driver index, and I don't want to guess what the index is going to be. I don't want to end up deleting another thing that is not the input driver for the gamepad that I'm writing. So this function is no good. The one that I found that was really interesting is this one, the lookup input driver. So you pass in the name of the driver, and it's going to actually give you a pointer to the driver. So in that case, you can modify it because now you have direct access. Now remember, in C, whenever you have a pointer to some data structure, you can, whatever that you do, every other process, every other part of the program is going to know what happened. So I've been playing with this a lot, and this was by chance. We were talking about this, and then I began thinking, hey, I'm trying to make this process of debugging my driver easier for me, because if I don't do this, I will have to pretty much stop the server entirely, force it to begin again. I just don't want that to happen. If some error happens, it's gonna simply destroy the data, forget about the driver, and continue. That's what I want, and load it again. So diving into legacy code, you're gonna find things like this that you may want to do something because you're developing for whatever application that you're building, but the legacy code may have some features that help you do that, but in this case, not quite. So I had to do a little trick in order to achieve that. I'm gonna show you this very quickly. So let me look at this driver code I'm writing. There are a lot of comments because I'm doing a lot of things, and I'm going to jump in. Yeah, I forgot that I have that on init function right here. That's right, I found it. So all that I have to do was replace the driver name with a stop, and the stop, it has another name which is not the name of the driver. We can look it up. It's probably here at the beginning of the source code. It's here in this. I will have to look at this. Okay, so it's right here, stop gamepad. So by using a different name, the server won't be able to find this one. This is the original name of this driver, just gamepad. So by changing the pointer that stores the driver name to this value, stop gamepad, it won't find it. It will think it's another driver, and yes, of course, it's gonna be in the list of drivers, but it will allow me to implement hot logging very cleanly. I won't have to do anything fancy with the server memory, anything like that. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been tough, but you know, I found a clean way of doing this, and I can disable this by just I don't know, maybe enabling a compile time flag that says, okay, this is developer build. We are going to support this only for developer builds. If this is in production, then we are not going to do that. We're just gonna let the xserver keep the driver because that's how it's supposed to work. So this is one of the things I wanted to share with you, and the other things is that I found some other useful commands in GDB that tells you very useful information. Last time we saw that you can find, for example, if we copy these info variables or types actually, and it will tell you where these are defined. In this case, because I'm using GDB with my driver, it's not pointing at the source code of the server. Instead, it's pointing at the header file. This is the system header file where this type is defined. But if I wanted to look at the type information without having to open up this header, I can use ptype, and that saves a lot of time. So it's telling me everything I need to know very quickly. All the types are right here, and this is very convenient because then you don't have to navigate. You don't have to open anything. You don't have to open your editor and look at the type information. You can do it all from GDB. So yes, it's a great idea to use the help and start reading. If you find something interesting, try it out, and that's how you learn. Every day, try learning something new. So let me see what else. Yeah, this is very useful. If you want to look at the offsets, then you can now, for example, and this is very cool, that the offset is 0 for the first data structure. So if you are new to C, you wouldn't know that if you have a pointer to the data structure, if you dereference that data structure with 8 bytes, what you're gonna see is exactly the first element of the data structure because it has a 0 offset. And all these pointers have a size of 8, that to be expected because we have a 64-bit processor. It's a 64-bit address space, so pointers are 8 bytes. So it tells you all you may want to know, especially, for example, if this data structure becomes optimized away for whatever reason. You have the information about the data structure. Then if this data structure actually lives in some register, then you know, okay, if I want to look at this, the name here, I just have to look 8 bytes from the address. And this is very useful because it simplifies a lot of the debugging when the compiler decides to optimize away a variable of a certain type. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Let me see what else we can look at today that it's related to the xserver code. Okay, let me go back to joystick. Okay, I have to go back here. Joystick.c, we saw this, and yeah, we also have to look at the pre-initialization code. This one takes input driver pointer and some information data structure, and this one is quite complicated because it runs twice. So basically, to have a driver for a joystick, you need to have a keyboard which is slaved essentially to the device, so that you will be able to send keyboard events. You will have to map the buttons to the keyboard events actually, and this is why it's a little tricky. So we're not gonna dive into this one, but if I strongly recommend that you start reading these functions and start coming up with questions and trying to understand it without asking LLM or AI or whatever. What does this thing do? And try to figure it out yourself, and you are gonna be able to improve and learn something new. And if you have a question, yeah, sure, ask me, ask a peer, ask somebody else. It's not that I never use AIs, but I try to limit the usage to the minimum. Okay, so I would love to explain this one in more detail, but let's look at on init. We're gonna have time to look at these as I advance through the development of this driver, as I get more familiar, because I am learning and I'm explaining to you what I learned. So essentially, some of the data that the joystick is gonna keep like in a private space, and this is allocated with malloc. So eventually you will have to free it if there is an error or something during the process. It will call this, let's say method, and we'll get rid of the data, and then you will perform a request to delete this input. And this is usually what happens, that you saw before, that we add a request to add the input driver, and then we call delete input because we're no longer going to need it, and the server is going to start cleaning up all the data structures that support the driver. So I think, let me see what time it is. Yeah, we're about 4 minutes. So remember, guys, that you can reach me out. You are going to be able to find all the content on YouTube, on my channel. And if you have any questions, sure, feel free to write me. I will prefer a public, so that if there's anybody else later on interested in the series, they can learn also from your questions. And yeah, I love teaching. Yeah, for some time I taught, not computer science, but I taught other engineering courses, and I love teaching and sharing. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode today. And also, if you have an idea what else you would like to see about the driver development or the xserver, you see something interesting that you don't know and you would like to know about, yeah, let's explore that together. So okay, I'm gonna stick to the rule of the 15-minute time, and thank you for the time. I hope that you enjoyed this talk. In 15 minutes we tried to learn something new, and I hope that you learned something, at least something new about GDB. So take care, guys. See you on the next episode.